Thumbelina. 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hey, it's not your turn.
That's right, it's Antoine's turn now.
It's no big deal.
Well, since it doesn't matter to him. 1.
Antoine,
2.
stick up for yourself. You're just like Thumbelina.
What is thumbelina?
Thumbelina is a teeny tiny girl, the size of a thumb, who is so nice that she has trouble saying no.
I don't see how that applies to me.
You'll see. Okay, once upon a time, there was a teeny tiny little girl, beautiful and graceful. During the day, she bathed in a plate surrounded by a wreath of flowers.
She's so pretty.
One night, while Thumbelina slept, an ugly frog climbed through a broken window. The frog saw Thumbelina and said, "She would make a perfect bride for my son," thought the frog. She seized the nutshell and ran away with her into the garden. Not far from the garden flowed a wide stream. This was where the frog lived together with her son. Ooh, he was ugly and horrid as she. "Let's lay her on the leaf of a water lily while we prepare the room where she will live," said his mother.
They're going to force her to live with them?
In the stream, there were many water lilies whose big green leaves seemed to float on the surface of the water. The poor little girl woke up, and when she saw where she was, she started to cry her heart out. Thumbelina cried because she didn't want to live with the nasty frog, nor did she want to marry her ugly son. The fish heard her crying and came up to the surface. They found the little girl so charming that they decided to help her. They gathered around the stem of the water lily and bit at it until it broke apart. Everywhere she went, the birds sang sweetly. Suddenly, a huge beetle saw Thumbelina, and he immediately seized her with his pincers. The other beetles came to look at her and decided that she was very ugly indeed.
Well, look who's talking.
The beetle who had thought she was beautiful ended up agreeing with the others. So he set her down on a big flower and told her she was free to go where she pleased.
Now she's all alone.
Hold on. It's not over yet. Thumbelina found herself all alone in the big forest. She fed on the pollen from the flowers and drank the morning dew that formed on the leaves. And so, summer and fall passed by. But before long, winter came. The long, cold winter. At the edge of the forest, Thumbelina finally arrived in front of the field mouse's door. "Stay with me for the winter," said the mouse. Thumbelina accepted, for the house was warm. "My neighbor comes here to visit me every evening. He has a comfortable home. If he was your husband, you'd have everything you want."
What? Again?
One day, in a long, dark gallery, Thumbelina found a nightingale laying still on the ground. "Poor bird," she thought very sadly. "He's probably dead from the cold." She bent down and kissed the bird's closed eyes. She lay her head on the bird's chest. It was the nightingale's heartbeat. It was not dead, only numbed by the bitter cold. All winter, Thumbelina nursed it, and when spring came along, the nightingale asked Thumbelina if she would like to leave with him. "No, I'm sorry, but I can't go with you. Mouse would be so sad if I left now."
What is she doing? That ugly mole wants to marry her?
"Goodbye, goodbye, my kind little girl," said the nightingale. Thumbelina watched him leave with tears in her eyes. By now, the neighbor, the boring old mole, was visiting every evening. He had asked for her hand in marriage, and Mouse had decided that they would be wed in the fall. The little girl was so unhappy.
But why didn't she leave? I just don't get it.
I guess she's doing it to be nice to the mouse.
That mouse isn't being very nice to her.
When fall finally came, Thumbelina cried and said she didn't want to marry the mole. "Stop crying," said the mouse. "Don't be so silly. Stop crying or I'll bite you." The day before the wedding, poor little Thumbelina slipped outside. "Goodbye, shining sun," she said. "Goodbye, goodbye." Thumbelina looked up at the sky. It was the nightingale who was delighted to see her. Thumbelina, in tears, told the nightingale that she didn't want to have the ugly mole for a husband. And she didn't want to live down deep under the ground.
That she shouldn't stay there.
Come with me. We will fly far from the horrid mole. We will travel to a land where it is always summer. Come, my dear child who saved my life. And so, the nightingale soared into the sky.
Finally, she's leaving.
The ground was covered with beautiful white flowers. The nightingale set Thumbelina down on one of the wide petals. But what a surprise awaited the little girl. A small man was sitting in the middle of the flower. "Oh, isn't he handsome?" said Thumbelina to the nightingale.
Oh, good. She'll be better off here.
She was the most beautiful girl he had ever set eyes on. So he took a golden crown and placed it on top of Thumbelina's head. Then he asked for her name and if she would like to be his wife. Thumbelina replied yes to the charming prince. Then he attached wings to her back. What a joy this is! And up there in the sky, the nightingales sang their happiness with all his heart.
That is such a beautiful story. I would love to be Thumbelina and have a bath surrounded by flower petals.
That story isn't much like the ones you usually read to us.
That's because it's a really old story. As old as Cinderella, Snow White, and Little Red Riding Hood. In those days, people weren't as free as they are now.
Well, I'm not like Thumbelina, am I?
Yes, as a matter of fact, from now on, I will call you Thumbelina.
No way. I'm not gonna end up with a frog or anything. And anyway, it's my turn.
Great, sorry.